Hello and welcome to the Academy where we discuss and seek a change in long-term athletic development. My name is Ben Wellenbach and I am the dad of two girls, strength coach and owner of Be Well Fitness. It is my desire to help educate and shift the way our current culture operates regarding long-term athletic development. Life has a way of completing circles. I was and still am a huge lover of sports. I've found that certain people or teams inspire me to watch and follow them. Sometimes it's their stories or the underdog or the things they had to overcome to get where they are today. My dad is the same way, and growing up, we would always seem to have the Tour de France on each year. I was impressed with their level of fitness and fortitude. As I grew up, I would watch off and on, but that all changed when I witnessed the USPS cycling team take over the tour. Cycling became more than just spinning wheels at that point. It revealed to me the team behind the sport. That is what intrigued me. That is what had me glued to the TV. And that is what drove me to ask for a bike as my college graduation present. Our guest today was part of that team, which changed the sport of cycling forever. As I do with every guest on the podcast, I will pair each guest with a sneaker from the Nike collection that I think best represents them. In 2000, Robbie started Vision Quest. In 2008, Nike started the Livestrong line of footwear that supported the charity efforts of Lance Armstrong. The Nike Free Run 2 Livestrong in Victory Yellow and Blue was the first introduction of blue into the Livestrong line. The combination of Vision Quest logo in blue and Robbie's history and connection with cycling made this the choice that best represented him. It's a versatile shoe that you can train in, run in, or wear casually. Its colorway is catchy and unique, just like Robbie. Robbie, welcome and thank you very much for taking the time to share some lessons learned for long-term athletic development.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so crazy that you talk about Nike shoes. Our team was sponsored by Nike, as you probably know. And we got tons of shoes from the team, but we got these shoes that were made of Tyvek, which is basically what those USPS envelopes are made of. And they made these US Postal Service shoes for us out of that material. They were just one-offs just for the team. It was a pretty cool shoe. I didn't keep a ton of stuff from those days, but those Tyvek shoes. When next time if you come over to my house, I'll show you a pair of them. You will be blown away at these things. It's pure like envelope material and they chose different pieces of it. So everybody's shoes looks a little bit different, but it's pretty slick. Just to ramble on here because I will ramble, as you know. We got a chance to go to Oregon where all the Nike stuff is made. Our team did, and they basically allowed us to go and they gave us like a budget. It was a sizable budget, by the way, huge number. You get the stuff for like literally it's like 20 cents on the dollar is what you can buy this stuff from. And I shipped home, oh my gosh, 20 or 30 like full blown boxes of Nike stuff, but they had Cole Haan. So I got all these really nice dress shoes. You can only get so much stuff for yourself. So I got stuff for my entire family. It was like Nike. It's when that Nike ACG stuff came out
It
initially.
still is, yeah.
Oh, they still have ACG. I didn't even
Oh,
know
yeah.
that. But basically, my entire family, my wife's family, everybody had Nike head to toe for a couple of years. So yeah, Nike was a great sponsorship.
Buddy, what you're talking about is my ultimate dream. It is
Oh,
like my fantasy land dream. As like as you'll come to find out, it's a bit of a problem that I've got. My
shoes?
infatuation, shoes, but more specifically Nike. I mean, I don't wear anything else.
Wow.
I mean, I am as loyal as an elephant, and I'm so fascinated with the brand and the development and the evolution of what they've done from just a sport standpoint. I have some like ultimate big picture dreams for them, but that is that is like the ultimate. Just go in there and go to town.
Oh God, it was nuts. Like the whole team was just ripping around in there, and I mean, it was spectacular. It was one of the best kind of fun sponsorship. We've had a lot of cool sponsorship things with that team, but that was maybe one of the best. Just seeing that campus is just spectacular. I mean, the buildings are phenomenal.
Yes.
Yeah, so cool.
Well, getting to you, that's kind of start in the beginning. Tell me about your childhood. Where did you grow up? Brothers, sisters? What sports did you play? What was that like? Was it structured, unstructured? What did all of that look like?
Yeah, well, I had 2 older sisters that were I'm not gonna say they were athletes, they probably were, they just didn't know it. I remember my sister Ellen, from the day I was born, could whoop me in a running race, and she just never liked sports, so who knows, she might have had some gifts. I think a lot of people probably have these amazing gifts and just really don't know it because of their exposure, and we grew up in a fairly, traditional Italian home. My mother and father are both 100% Italian. My dad worked his butt off. My mom did as well. She's a physical therapist. My dad was an excavator, but my dad loved sports. And when I was really young, I had some issues with my bronchial tubes. They just weren't developing. They weren't expanding like they should have. So my parents got me into soccer. The doctor said, "Hey, you got to get this kid into some endurance sports, or he's going to have some issues down the road." So they got me into soccer. I started playing soccer, and we had a couple friends from the neighborhood that I played with. They got me into cycling, and then one of the friends got me into hockey. And then once my dad kind of, noticed that I had a proclivity to do sports, I really liked him. That he started to, my dad was an incredible athlete himself, just didn't have the opportunities that probably you and myself had with just parents that were able to take us places and get us involved and pay these little entry fees that it took to get into sports. And my dad, for whatever reason, utilized some of his income to do that for me, which I'm very grateful for. I got into baseball, hockey, cycling, pretty much all these sports because I just loved it. I didn't really know, I didn't really have a direction. I don't know if you've ever, and I'm sure it's probably the exposure to all those different sports at such a young age and playing them at a decent level. I mean, I was working my way up through these different, they have house league baseball, then they have real baseball, then they have pony league, and they have house soccer and travel soccer. So I was kind of moving my way up house hockey and travel hockey relatively quickly. And I don't know if you've ever read any of David Epstein's work. He's got this book called Range, where he talks about, you know, the importance of doing a lot of different things when you're younger and how that really adds to your ability to be successful in the sport or area, not just sport, education, doctor, whatever you end up choosing to do full time. All of those other things that you've done really add to that. I don't know if you've ever read Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hours one. They're kind of like loggerheads, right? Whereas one guy thinks that you should do the same thing a ton of times and that's how you get good, kind of the Tiger Woods type mentality, playing golf when he's 2 years old, all the way up till now. And that's why he's a spectacular person, a spectacular golfer. Or you look at David Epstein's Range, where Roger Federer played every sport under the sun. He didn't start playing tennis till late, and he became incredible because he developed all these other skills. So whatever kind of school you're in, I think they both have obviously merit. Mine was more on the range side, where I played every sport and didn't really decide what I was going to do until later in life when opportunities and talents and successes started to come my way in any of these given sports. But I will be remiss to not to tell you that my father throughout my career was my coach. He was by far and away the greatest coach I've ever seen, ever had, ever been experienced with. Ever, I mean, like the stuff that he was doing. He had no science background. He was not an exercise physiologist. The guy dug holes for a living, but his intuition and his ability to understand and figure out things, he should have been an engineer for sure, was beyond any other person that I've met to date from a standpoint of technology and how to optimize technology. He was taking my resting heart rate when I was 9 years old in the morning and writing it into a book and going, "Hey, your resting heart rate's a little bit high. We might need to rest you a little bit." This is 46 years ago. People are now, these Oura rings are now just figuring out the importance of tracking resting heart rate. He did it 46 years ago in a little piece of paper in a book every morning with a heart rate monitor that he'd put on me that was super old. And sometimes he would even take my heart rate. So I got to tell you, I was very, very fortunate to have a father that was not only a genius, but gave me every opportunity to be successful in sport. My sisters were super successful themselves. I'm definitely the run of the litter when it comes to sheer horsepower mentally. They're phenomenal. I think they both either got perfect scores or darn close to it on the SAT. They paid their way through college with scholarships. They just are completely successful themselves. They have terrific families. My sister Jane lives in California. My sister Ellen lives down the road. Again, super family oriented. My parents are still alive. They come see all my kids, all my daughter's lacrosse games. They still come around and we see them twice a week. So yeah, just very fortunate to have that. And then of course my wife Lori, I met in college, Lake Forest. We have something in common there. We
Yep.
have four incredible kids. Two of them, one of them is graduated from Northwestern. My son Enzo is a senior at NYU. My daughter Lucy is a sophomore at SLU, and my daughter Rocky is a senior at Carmel Catholic in Mundelein.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, let me tap into this greatest coach that you've ever had in your dad.
yeah,
And the reason I want to tap into it because the conversation that my wife and I were having even just last night about members of a team and having agreements of members of a team. So you have a coach and you have their role. I was kind of equating it to the branches of government, that everybody is a checks and balance, that the coach has a role, the parents have a role, the athlete has a role. And we have to trust and support the role of each of those and do our best not to overstep our roles. I I find it inspiring beyond measure that your dad not only had the impact that he had on you, but being named the best coach you've ever had, because that basically crushes my argument, which is awesome because it completely oversteps the bounds. So my question is, why did you choose to listen to him? And what did he do that made it or created such a culture or environment that had you believe in what he was saying to you?
yeah. That's an interesting question because, like any relationship with your kids, as you know, it's not always perfect. The way he delivered information today would probably be like probably get arrested. I don't know, but I think things were just a little bit different back then because I'm trying to be a great coach to my daughter Rocky, and I just can't coach Rocky like my dad coached me. It just doesn't work. There's just everybody is so individual. His way with me was just worked. I think I really respected and understood what he was telling me. When I would do the things he would tell me, I would have success.
Mm,
When I would do the things he didn't tell me or he told me and I didn't do, I didn't have success. His track record was not only good with me, but he helped out other kids as well. And any kind of kid that he would help would do great. I mean, period. And he had a real understanding and knack to understand how much you could push somebody and how when to stop, kind of thing. He motor paced me on the velodrome. He motor paced me on the road. We'd wake up at 5:30 in the morning. He had this little Passport motorcycle, and he rigged up this rear roller on the back. And the stuff he would rig up and do, like years later, everybody else was doing. It was just He's just had this unbelievable thought process, and not just from a standpoint of like he even helped out my business Vision Quest. Like he would take out my Vision Quest athletes and they would just be like, how does this guy know exactly how hard to take me? All he'd be looking at is in the rearview mirror at their face, and he could tell at what level of exertion they were at and if they could take a little bit more or not, because he spent so much time with me. But he also knew, he's like, did that guy have a hip problem? I felt like he's sitting on a saddle a little off. And I'd be like, if I had this man's intuition, I would be such a better coach. Like he had this ability to analyze. You ever watch a football game with him or a hockey game, a pro game with him? he'd be like, oh my gosh, look at this tight end. Something's wrong. He's not covered. Like he could just see things in any sport you would ever watch and be accurate. Like he's watching Olympics, he's watching downhill skiing. I'll never forget this. And he'd be like, this guy's entering this turn way too hot. Whew, he'd go flying off the thing. Like he just had this ability. And I honestly think it was some sort of savant genius level of ability to analyze anything really. But when you have a father that can analyze like that and be accurate most of the time, it's not always fun because he'd tell you when you did something wrong. He'd tell you when you did something right. He never sugarcoated anything. I feel like in today's day and age, we really want to make sure that we highlight the positive, which he did for sure. And we really kind of want to watch how we talk about the negative, which he didn't. He just kind of said it like it was. And a trust is gained through that. And I feel bad because that trust is not as easily defined in today's day and age. I feel like we're always kind of walking this line of making sure that we're being friendly and not hurting anybody's feelings, which I think is probably a better way to be at the end of the day because relationships are a lot more important than performance. However, if you want to have someone perform at its best, you have to be able to tell them exactly what they're doing right and exactly what they're doing wrong. And you can't feel bad about it. And my dad did not. And although at times it stung a little bit, I think ultimately it really helped me understand, how to perform at my best. And he was right 99.9% of the time. So at one point I just said, okay, whatever he says I'm going to do. And it worked out well.
You said you got up at 5:30 in the morning. How old were you when you were getting up that early to
I
go?
was 9. From the age of 9 to maybe the age of 13, he would motor pace me before school twice a week. And basically, we would go out for 25 miles. And I would ride a track bike. I don't know if you know what a track bike is, but a track bike is there's no brakes and there's no coasting. There's one gear and you just pedal it and you can't stop pedaling it. It's a fixed gear, right? It's called a fixie. That's what they call them now, but we call them just track bikes. And can you imagine? I was behind him on his motorcycle. I had this hairnet. Sometimes I didn't wear a helmet because they weren't mandatory back then. And I would ride behind a motorcycle going 25 to 30 miles an hour with a bike that you couldn't stop and you couldn't coast and you only had one gear. So it was like today you would never in a million years do that. But what it did is it really made me a smooth pedaler. It forced me to run at high RPMs because now you're going down a hill. You just can't coast if you run out of ability. You have to pedal faster and faster and learn how to control that cadence, or you will literally go flying off your bike. We never had one crash. We had some close calls. We had some nasty things that happened, but we never actually fell. But it just was that's just what we did. And I was like no other kid's parents waking up at 5:30 in the morning taking him out for motor pacing. I'll tell you that. And I was really grateful for it. And at the time, I kind of took it for granted. But I look back on it and think about what he did. Then he'd go to work till like 7 o'clock at night, come back and like throw me ground balls until the sun went down. I mean, it was crazy.
Did you want to get up at 5:30 in the morning to do that?
Not every time. I don't think I did every time. I think sometimes were easier than others.
Would you say the majority of the time?
It's a long time ago, man. I'm trying to think about. We always remember it different, right?
Hmm.
Like if I asked him, he probably almost never wanted to wake up. I kind of remember it as maybe 30% of the time I got excited about it. 30% of the time I kind of did it like whatever. And 30% of the time I probably was like, no, I just can't do this today. But I did it. Like we never really didn't do it unless, my heart rate was off or something was really, really bad.
So what I'm also finding as I'm, going through these podcasts and interviewing various coaches in various sports and various roles is that part of the coach's role is to create a culture and environment for success. Do the things that will help facilitate that. The other part that is really unique to probably some of the best, if not the best, in their respective fields is that there is an internal drive that you can't coach. I mean, for you to at 9 years old even 30% of the time, Robbie, be like, all right, I'm excited to do this. That's I want to both recognize you, but also recognize your dad as well. But that's not normal. Like that's not the, let's say, the majority. There's a level of passion. Something within you was a spark. It wasn't just like by happenstance, I would say.
Yeah, I think all of my dad's kids, both my sisters are the same way. They just have this little internal motivation, I would say.
Do you know what it was for you?
It's fun to be successful at something. It's fun to grow. It's fun to get better. I think everybody is motivated by improvement. You'll find very few people in this world that if they're improving and they're doing it on a consistent basis, that it gets a heck of a lot easier and it almost gets more fun to participate and train hard. Like I think growth, action creates growth, and that growth creates motivation. And I think it's a really important lesson for everybody. And I say to my daughter Rocky all the time is it's really easy to wake up early if you're getting better and if you're growing and you can see the growth. And I think that people say, Dad, I'm just not motivated. The reason why you're not motivated is because you're not doing anything. Once you start, motivation just doesn't come out of thin air. It comes from action. Motivation, action begets motivation. It's not the other way around. You don't say, Hey,
Mhm.
I'm going to get really good. And then all of a sudden get excited to train. You train a lot and then you get motivated because you see growth. And I think it's a misconception that I think you got to start doing shit if you want to get good. And once you get good, it's really easy to keep doing shit.
I mean, but you have to have. I mean, don't you feel like you have to have a willingness to keep showing up?
Yeah, but that gets easier if you can see a little hint of improvement. Like to me, my dad was really good at telling me when I got better at something, which
Mm,
made me really want to keep doing something. And I think that that's a key element, right? Like my daughter Rocky, we're outside shooting, and when she's shooting better, she
yeah,
wants to keep shooting. You know what I mean? When she's kind of in this spot where she's kind of flattening out,
right.
you just kind of lose that motivation. And but you got to find what my dad did really well is he found other things that were getting better, right? So let's just say my endurance kind of was staying the same, but all of a sudden my sprint was better, or I could draft a little bit better, or the skills I was gaining was better. So he kind of highlighted those things, and I think he did that because he wanted to see me keep getting after it. Because as you know, improvement isn't linear. You don't just do something and get better. Like it's like this bumpy road. So when you actually have a little lift, you got to pepper that in as incredible, and then boom, people want to get after it a little more.
I would say what he did was capture your success immediately, and that capture allowed you to recognize what, like, you may not have even realized that your through your example your sprint was getting better, but he captured it, so it now became on your radar.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
um but even at that age, at 9, you're playing all various sports. I mean, you mentioned baseball, you mentioned hockey, cycling. I mean, what inspired you to do all of those things? I mean, can you can you touch on either one or multiple things?
Well, I think my dad's support of it was one of them, but one of them was I had a really good friend Shane Kerpus that my parents were really good friends with. He played all these things with me. He biked and did soccer with me and baseball. He didn't do the hockey part of it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think I had a friend that I did it with. I mean, they're both his parents drove, my parents drove, so we had the opportunity there, and we loved to hang out with each other. We did pretty much everything together. So I had someone to kind of go to all this stuff with, which I think helped a lot.
Great.
Um, but yeah, my sisters were super super smart and great in school, and they were like successful even at a very young age. They were winning all these awards and they music, and they just were incredible. This was kind of my little lane that I played in, and it also allowed me to have maybe some identity. Like I was an athlete in school. I was one of the better athletes. I excelled in gym class and different things like that. So I kind of positioned my own brain around being an athlete. So I pursued it, and I was pretty good at stuff. So it was easy to kind of find that as my identity.
Do you still see that concept of athletics or sports as part of your identity now?
Yeah, I think I still love to do all sorts of sports. I love to. Yeah, I don't get to play as many different things as I'd like to, but I think sports are just come natural to me, and now they come natural to me because I did them for so long, and I kept doing them for so long that as my peers maybe went into other things, I kind of stayed involved. So naturally, I'm pretty good at them still. But at the end of the day, like even like golfing and different things, like I just love it. I love going out and playing golf. And some days I can really play well, and some days I really can't. But I'm not hyper competitive anymore. It's amazing. Like some of my friends that I play with are way more. They get way more frustrated than I do when they miss a shot. And I think it's just because they haven't yeah, I don't know. Maybe they haven't played for something bigger than a few guys playing some skins in their at the local club. So I don't get too crazy competitive. People think I'm competitive, but really I'm not. I'm not competitive much anymore. I just love to play the sports, and I love to play them well.
Do you think people don't think you're competitive because the level in which you're quote unquote competing at now doesn't hold a candle to the level of competition that you had when you were actually competing?
Yeah, I think what's crazy is I was playing one of my teammates, George Hincapie, one of my old teammates in pickleball when we were at
Yep.
Blackberry like 6 months ago, and I
Okay.
got really competitive with him, and we were going at it toe to toe, and it was awesome. I love those environments, by the way. I mean, at the end of the day, I think I am. Now that I think about it, I was so I mean, I was having fun. I wasn't getting mad or anything, but I wanted to beat him so bad,
Yep.
and maybe because it was George and we used to race together, maybe it wasn't. But like when I'm playing with my neighbor friends or whatever, I just don't care that much. In fact, I try to like I want it to be competitive for everybody. So I'm trying to work the game to make sure everybody's feeling like they're getting something out of it. But yeah, it's when you've I think when you've played for more in your life, you realize that these games are fun, and nothing is going to matter at the end of the day like it used to.
I think I think what you're bringing up, by you saying, your some of your inspiration came from, doing these various sports with a friend, with a buddy. I think that camaraderie and team, and then what you're talking about in regard to, let's say, experiences. I think that goes a really long way because you know you I'm a big fan of team sports, and I think that the team has such a unique environment that it creates. So anyways, I think that it speaks clearly to me, what your experiences were, and why that inspired you, and why you ended up doing what you were doing. When did you know? Well, hold on. So before I ask that, so you played that stuff growing up. You wound up going to our mutual alma mater, Lake Forest College, and you wound up playing hockey there. So you played collegiate hockey. Did And you kept cycling through college, yes? Or did you? What were sports like at that point in your life?
Yeah, so I played junior A hockey for the Dubuque Fighting Saints and the Des Moines Buccaneers, and wanted to really play Division I college hockey. That was really ultimately where I wanted to be. I was on the on a really good junior team, the 7-Eleven junior team when I was younger. So I was a good cyclist at the time, but I just loved hockey more. I mean, like it was one of those things I was talking to you about. Like that was my place that I wanted to be. I wanted to play. I wanted to play in the NHL, of course, like we all did. So I went and played junior A hockey and had some terrible injuries in junior A. I tore my quadricep, then I smashed all the bones in my face. I broke my orbital bone and my cheekbone and my cheek. It was just a disaster. I got hit with a slap shot in the face because we didn't wear masks and just had a rough go at that juniors season. So I ended up not going and playing Division One. Ended up going to Lake Forest College. Although we did play Notre Dame twice, Kent State twice, Fairbanks, Anchorage. We played 8 Division I games, of which we won half. But it wasn't kind of where I wanted to land. And then I got real lucky and won the Olympic. So I was still cycling a little bit in college. I was really wanting to play hockey. Once I understood that I'm only going to play at Lake Forest, not only, but I was going to play at Lake Forest College, and this is kind of where I was at. We all have these moments in our lives, I think, where we start to we learn that what we can and can't do, right? And I think that when you're a little hockey player and the house league team, you're going to be the next Gretzky or Lemieux. Then all of a sudden you're like, hey, if I could just make it to the NHL. But then all of a sudden you just start having these moments as you go through your sporting career where you start to figure out what your limits are. And it doesn't like necessarily hurt. It's so funny. Like it's like we think there's going to be all this pain around it. It is what it should be, right? You kind of land where you should land in life. So once I landed and I knew that this was not going to be something, I was like, I still like cycling. I'm still going to do it. I haven't really gone as deep as all these other friends of mine because no pro cyclist ever goes to college. I didn't know one that went to college when I was a kid. So when I went to college and all my buddies that were really good cyclists just kept racing, I was happy for them, but that wasn't where I wanted to be. And then I got lucky and I was asked to help a guy win the world's trials on the velodrome in Indianapolis or in Blaine, Minnesota. And I ended up going up to help him out. And I got real lucky and ended up winning the race and going to the world championships in Norway when I was a junior in college, believe it or not. So after that, I kind of started getting noticed by some of these professional teams. And then my senior year, I won a big professional race, just kind of racing under a local team. And it was a big race with a lot of really good racers in it. And it was a big finishing sprint from a breakaway, and all the best U.S. sprinters were in that breakaway, and I won. And then after that race, this guy Tom Schuler from Saturn said, "Hey, I want you to race for our team now. Like we want you to after you graduate here, we want to keep you on for the last half of the season." And that's kind of how I started cycling more.
I love that you say that's how I started cycling more because you there's no way you could have just been like doing it here and there and been able to do what you did by going to the world championships, by going and winning this race. I mean, how many days in addition to playing hockey, I mean, how many days were you cycling during the course of a week?
Honestly, I'm gonna be totally. I got lucky at both of those things. I got pretty lucky.
Okay.
I had a so I have a really good sprint. I'm a sprinter. That was my job for cycling. I was a fast twitch athlete. In most endurance athletes, I mean, there's a bunch of them that have that can go long and go fast, but you have these fiber types, you have these energy systems, these aerobic and glycolytic energy systems, and everybody is on this spectrum of where they're at. And I was a guy that had pretty good endurance, but really good explosiveness.
Hmm.
And if the races weren't that hard and we can come to the finish, I could win. And any race that was hard and longer and more difficult, I couldn't because A, I didn't train enough because I was going to college and playing hockey, and B, that's not where my capacities, and that's not where my gifts lie. I was more of a explosive athlete. So when I went into the world championships, I was still it was I honestly, it was an easy race, and I kind of followed people around. I had this really easy job of leading this guy out, and then following these two other riders that were really good, and I just ended up following them and not doing any work at all. and I had a good sprint at the end, and I ended up winning the final sprint. So I ended up going to the Worlds. And then in the bicycle race, I kind of didn't sit. I didn't have any obligation to do any work because all these big pro teams were doing all the work. I just kind of followed a guy up to the breakaway, so I had fresh legs in the sprint. And since I have that good sprint, I took off with like 150 meters to go and won it. So really, I didn't have to be in incredible shape. I had to be in good shape. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't like, you know, a guy off the couch could do it, but I probably rode maybe twice a week when I was in college.
Yeah.
And and the thing about it is, and this is an interesting thing, the more you ride, the more aerobic work that you do, you tend to lose a little bit of that explosiveness. So I was at my peak sprinting when I did my least amount of training, and I just really worked on my explosiveness. As soon as I trained too much, I could keep up at bigger races. So I could put my hat in the ring more times because I made it to the finish a lot more. But I lost a little bit of that explosiveness that gave me the ability to whoop everybody. So it's one of those, balance points that cyclists really have to deal with, because you just can't go out there and train. You have to be really good at something if you want to be a professional, and you have to be really good at something. And sometimes when you're really good at something and you train the other stuff to get better at it, you lose what's really good at something. So that's always a balance that I tried to maintain throughout my career, is keep enough explosiveness so I can win races still.
Do you think that playing hockey made you a better cyclist, and that like that little something? Because hockey is legitimately a series of powerful explosive bursts. As each shift is 30 to 45 seconds, maybe a minute. And there is not one guy who I played with at a high level who whose legs were not strong. So, did you find that one helped the other?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I was telling you about that range thing and how the
Yes.
range that I had in all these other sports helped me 1,000%. Like, if I did not, it did a few things for me. Cycling in general is the main components to be successful are a high VO2 max, an extremely well developed aerobic system, durability, right? Being able to have less fatigue resistance later in an effort or later in a day, because the day, sometimes the day you're out there for 6 hours, and you have to have enough glycolytic and explosive power to win in either a small group sprint or a big sprint if you're a sprinter. Hockey, though, what hockey gave me is a toughness and a size and an ability to muscle people around and a skill. Like, I was, in my opinion, and I was a really good bike handler, and I could really hold position well, and I could take position from people when I wanted it.
Mm.
And I gained those skills from hockey for sure. That's why I was a good track racer. Like, I was I was tougher. I was more confident in my ability to move around in the peloton. Nobody messed with me ever. Wherever I'd go, people would move out of the way because they were nervous and intimidated. And that I needed to be that way because I couldn't do it the hard way. I just wasn't good enough to do it any other way. So, and then all my baseball, all my hockey, the other sports that I played gave me a eye-hand coordination and a skill and a body awareness that most cyclists don't have. They ride their bikes a lot, right? And that's all they do. I wasn't like that. I could do any sport. I was better at figuring out cornering, and if it got wet and my bike slid a little bit, I was totally fine. So everybody else got nervous. Cyclocross, when things had to get crazy, I had to lift my bike and jump over stuff. I was just better at it than everybody else. And I'm guaranteeing it. It was the athleticism that I gained from all these other sports in my life that gave me my edge. Without that, I wouldn't have been a professional, that's for sure.
Well, I know that you and I both playing hockey through college. We certainly are biased toward the sport, but there are very few that are the same or more from a toughness standpoint than hockey players. When I was done playing hockey in college, like for the season, I wound up playing rugby. And people people would laugh, and it would be like, you didn't get enough violence when you were playing, but it was that competitive, like, physicality that you're talking about, that was very similar. The other point that I I can't emphasize enough is that you playing and doing multiple things instead of just quote unquote what you have become known for, or what you decided to really pursue at a professional level, only made you better. And I 100% agree with you that the level of durability that you created for yourself in the sport, but the versatility and the athleticism, is all due to playing multiple sports.
Yeah.
Would you say it was kind of at that time with the Worlds and the other event back here that you felt like, maybe I've got something special going on in the cycling world?
Yeah, I thought I had a niche. I thought I could. On the velodrome, I was lucky, kind of. I talk out of both sides of my mouth here. I talked about range and how important that is,
Right.
but I also talk about repetitions, the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing. I had the ability to race my bicycle way more than anybody else because I raced the velodrome in Kenosha. I raced the velodrome in Northbrook. I raced the velodrome in Indianapolis. We had an incredible amount of criteriums and races around here. So I mean, sometimes I would race, and then when I was a junior, I'd race the juniors and the seniors. That's like 5 races, 3 times a week. That's 15 races. Plus, I would do like the juniors and seniors races on the weekend. That's another 4 races. I mean, sometimes I would do 20 races in a week. Other cyclists in this country could maybe do 20 races in a season because they don't have the velodromes. So I was able to out race rep pretty much any other kid my age throughout my so that was like 25. I had this incredible opportunity to race a lot. And when you race that much, you get really good at racing. So I could tell when a breakaway was going to go. I knew who the best people were. I knew how to set up for a sprint. If it was a headwind, I wanted to be fourth, not second. Like it was, I just had every single thing down to a science as it related to execution on race day. I knew exactly how I was going to perform. I had a pre-race routine that my dad hooked me up with. I was optimized from a race performance perspective, and I knew I was good at that. And I knew just being good at that would get me a few race wins a year. I mean, racing a bicycle is not like a boxing match or a wrestler where you have to win every single race to be successful. Racing is like if you win 1 out of 20, you're freaking great. If you win 2 out of 20, you're insane, right? So like there's so many people that can win the race at the start that winning a race is a big deal, even if it's just one a year. And I always knew there'd be a situation where I'd have the opportunity to win and I would close and win one. Um, and because I could do that, I'm a value to any team. I was a good sprinter and I was good at positioning myself. My issue is I just wasn't, I didn't have the endurance that everybody else had. Both from a training perspective, I never trained as much as everybody else did because I was doing other stuff. And secondly, my natural gifts didn't lie in aerobic power and a massive VO2 max. I had an okay VO2 max and I had poor aerobic power. So, but that's trainable, right? So I knew if I really dug in and trained my ass off, I could get better at these things. I didn't know how much better, but I was willing to give it a shot. So when I signed that contract for the rest of that year, the next year I overdid it. I tried to train a lot. I got a little bit injured. I wasn't as good. I didn't do very well. It took me a while to figure out how to train a lot and to get better and better. And eventually I figured it all out. It took a while. It took a lot of mistakes, a lot of overtraining, a lot of undertraining, but I eventually kind of zeroed it in like everybody does. And I think I pretty much, I think I optimized my abilities. It wasn't ever good enough to like race the Tour de France at that level, but it was good enough to win some local races at a pretty high level.
So then you're doing these races, and what what then, what projects you to the next level?
Yeah, it was just really like all of us should do, right? I think, going to the point where I knew I was getting worse, I think was one of the most important things that I learned. Like some people can tolerate a big difference between the really great endurance athletes and the ones that are kind of like me, pretty good ones, is how much training you can manage, tolerate. Um, and and recover from, right? That all has to do with hormones and VO2 max and all these things that people have, genetics that people have, hemoglobin and hematocrit and blood levels. And you mash all that together. And I could only handle 16, 17 hours of training a week, whereas somebody else could handle 25. And if you can handle and grow from 25, you're going to eventually pull away from somebody that can only grow from 16 or 17. I could do 25. That wasn't the issue. I could do 30. I could do 40, but I couldn't grow from it because I get tired. And that was my Achilles heel. But figuring out how to get to that 18 or 19 and be as fast as I could be, but be as fit as I could be, and then pick the races that I could win, and the other races I could be a helper was how you get to the next level. You understand your gifts and how you can be effective in a team. You make sure that those things stay at the highest level, but you constantly try to bring up all those other rate limiting factors so you can just be a little bit better at all of it. And the difference is so small. Like the difference between like a world tour rider and a division one pro is like, the power might even be the same, right? At threshold. It's what they can manage 5 and 6 hours into an event, what they can manage 3 or 4 days into a stage race. That's where these slight differences and these deltas start to creep apart. And then by the end, you're 2 hours behind the guy in GC. So it's not a lot, but it's enough.
When you say, you used a term, and it's slipping my mind right now, but maybe it was manage. What are you what are you managing?
You're keeping track of volume, training volume, which you can manage, which you can calculate when you look at intensity times time. There's different ways to look at it. You can just look at hours. I'm
Okay.
training this many hours, and then your performance is in watts or in victories or keeping up or success in races, right? So, if your success in races are good and you're training 18 hours and your success in racing gets bad when you start training 20 hours, that's what you're managing, right? Like, and then those hours, what do they consist of? They consist of long, easy days. They consist of intensity days. They consist of days that are very specific to your work, to your efforts during the events, and they consist of sprinting, right? Those are the main elements that make you successful in a bike race. There's time trial, there's some other things as well, but you're thinking about and measuring all that stuff with a power meter. You're measuring all that success with race results, and you're quantifying all that training based on outputs that you have on your computer, whether it's power and time, really. I don't know how into it you want to get, but you're basically managing volume versus success.
No, I think it's great. I mean, that's at a very top level, you know, explanation. We could certainly delve into the details, but I think, you know, ultimately, what I think the biggest takeaway is that there's not just one way, for one, and for two, it is solely dependent on that particular individual.
Yeah.
And not only is it dependent on that individual, but it's also the responsibility of that individual to then give feedback to said coach or professional who is advising, because again, you had your dad that was kind of going, okay, we've got 18 hours of training, and then we've got these wins that are associated with it. Let's just see if we get 20 hours, and maybe this would, go up accordingly, but in some cases it doesn't. So to your point, more is not always better, and it's not always linear either. And I think that's important for people to understand.
For sure. And I think the one point you made is the best one. The and it's the hardest thing. Like we just want to be told what to do and then all of a sudden it works.
Mm,
Unfortunately, nobody knows you like you know yourself.
mm.
And I think paying attention to how you feel and to how things are affecting you is is critical if you want to optimize performance. And I think most people don't do that. They either listen to somebody else and they go do what they said, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. And this just doesn't go for training. This goes for nutrition. Like to me, the most important nutritional note that you can tell anybody is pay attention to how you feel after you eat something. Like do the work. Like if you eat a bunch of cheese and you can't perform well and you do that 2 or 3 times, it's on you to not eat cheese anymore. Like like if people would just pay attention, take notes and understand how a workout makes them feel afterwards or how eating makes them feel or how drinking certain shakes or supplements or whatever. People don't want to do that. They're lazy. They want to be told what to do and then they want to just hope it works rather than really doing the work and paying attention to how you feel any given time. Just same with before a hard workout. How do you feel before this workout? Are you ready for it? Are you not ready for it? Just don't go in and try to do something. Like pay attention. The more you pay attention, the quicker and less mistakes you're going to make with or without a coach.
Do you think that people are lazy or ill-inspired?
I think most people it require there's a lot going on in most people's lives. There's just so many things to do and think about, especially as we get older and we have kids and jobs and careers and family and parents and all kinds of stuff, right? That paying attention to their own personal health and wellness in all aspects, whether it's nutrition, hydration, physical, strength training, endurance training, it's just like, oh my God, another thing. But unfortunately, it should probably trump a lot of the other things that they're paying attention to because if they can figure out what really works for them, really works nutrition, exercise, sleep, hydration, the big ones, right? If they can really dial that in because they paid attention to it, then they got more energy and they got more thought and they have more like capacity to help the people around them. And it's a flip in terms of how people prioritize themselves and their own health and wellness. But it's not just prioritizing yourself; it's actually paying attention to what you're doing to the point where you can dial yourself in. And the people that are dialed in, I mean, you might have to tweak it here and there, but do the hard work early, figure all this stuff out. Then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit easier. You're going to change as a human as you get older, right? Things are going to tweak a little bit, but you got the main pieces in place. Then it's just a little dial, right? So do the work, pay attention, figure that piece out, and you'll be better for everybody else.
Let's shift a little bit to the experience at the tour. How did you see the Tour de France as high pressure? Did you see it what when you were told, okay, you're going to be on this USPS team and we're going to the tour, and you knew the guys who were on your team, and I'm assuming you knew the level of talent of, the majority of the guys that were on the team.
Yeah, so just to kind of clear the air a little bit, I was brought in the US Postal Service to win sprints,
Okay.
to win bike races, mostly in the United States. They wanted a big presence here. They never recruited me to do the Tour de France. The Tour de France was reserved for people with those crazy high VO2 maxes, guys that could support Lance Armstrong's winning efforts. That was not me. I spent a lot of time at the Tour de France commentating from 2006 to 2014, but I never did a pedal stroke racing it with our team. We had 26 athletes on our team on the US Postal Service, and only 9 get to do the tour. And I always, think that I was happy that I never did that bicycle race. It would have been incredible to be a part of the actual race itself, but being a commentator was plenty. I spent enough time in France, and I was around that environment a lot. Those riders are a different breed. They have they're just different, right? And they're not 170-pound muscular guys like myself. They're 100 and they're small. They just have a different engine than I had. Fortunately or unfortunately, I consider myself blessed with the engine that I have and what I could do. I would never want to have an engine like that, I guess, because it's not mine. It's, whatever. But the amount of energy around that event, the amount of preparation around that event, the amount of stress around that event, especially for a team that wins it every year, I can't imagine. I only could be a part of some of our training camps when all the tour riders were there, and the amount of energy and time we spent training, because we all trained together,
Hmm.
whether you were a classics racer, a sprinter, or a tour rider. Training camps were training camps, 14 days in the mountains in Spain, and hard and long. Every day was long, but it takes a different mentality to race for 21 days like that. It's you can never get too high, you can never get too low. You have to have this resolve, this steadiness, this focus on recovery. There is no You got to try to limit your emotion because that takes energy, right? When you think about doing a marathon for 20 days in a row and the amount of energy it takes, because that's what they compare it to. They compare it to running a marathon for 20 days in a row. You don't want to waste any energy thinking about things that you can't deal with or change, right? So you have a personality that comes from that. And if you don't, because there's been incredible racers that couldn't do it, even though they had the talent, they had the VO2 max, they had the training, they had everything, but they couldn't calm their brain enough for 21 days to perform well every single day in a row. And that takes a special type of mindset. And I don't know if I'd have been good at it. I have a lot more passion and fire and excitement, my hockey days, whatever. I'd probably be better with it. I mean, I've done longer stage races before, and I was never in a GC position, so I never had to keep that super steady mindset. But I just don't think I'd be very good at it. But going to training camp the first year, I'll never forget. Kind of back to your question is, you're going to race with the greatest racers in the world. I remember it was in Alicante, Spain. I get to the dinner table. I got Ekimov, one of the greatest Russian athletes of all time, gold medalist in the World Championship several times. You got Roberto Heras, you got George, you got Lance, you got all these guys sitting around this table. And I remember looking at him going, whoa, I am over my skis. But I think putting yourself in rooms where you're over your skis is good for you. I think you shouldn't do it every single day, but I think you should do it once in a while because I believe it surrounding yourself with that quality of an athlete only if you can learn from them, right? And you can put yourself in their kind of world for a while. I think it ultimately raises your game. Um, I do believe you should also put yourself in rooms and on bike rides where you're the strongest because you can take risks that you wouldn't normally take. So I think there's always benefit to be over your skis and then to be the best in the group. Because when you're over your skis, you raise your game to meet the level. When you're the best, you take chances because you know you don't have anything to lose, right? You're the best guy, you can attack, you can try all these new things because you know you're not going to get dropped, you can keep up. So I always believe athletes should have them both. Always have them both. When people ask me, "Hey, Robbie, what ride should I join? Should I join the better guys or join the worst guys?" I go, "You should join them both. Sometimes with the faster group, sometimes with the slower group. You'll learn things from both."
What would you say was the biggest takeaway from that experience in those training camps with the guys you were over your skis, according to you?
I think the level of precision, the U.S. Postal Service taught me that there is a different level of paying attention, going back to paying attention, that there's more to it than hours and intensity. There's nutrition, there's clothing, there's technology, there is there's just so many elements to making a champion that I didn't know existed. The level of precision, laying out a season from start to finish. I learned a lot about marginal gains and the extent to which champions go to achieve greatness.
I'm I think it's pure genius, marginal gains. That term, the phrase, the the visual, because most of the folks that come in our facility, maybe in yours as well, they may come in multiple times during the course of a week, and they think that they're not really making gains. Yet, you know, I just saw from my very first mentor, Boyle, him saying the most important thing is to just keep showing up. And, you know, it further goes back to that it doesn't matter if I think I write you the greatest strength program in the world. If you're not going to be compliant with it, then it sucks. So we seek compliance and consistency, and all of that leads to these marginal gains, and all of these fractions add up to wholes. And I think now, especially with the state of Amazon, the GLP-1s like Ozempic, and our cell phones, we want something, we just immediately look it up. We were joking this morning in the gym, if you remember, like actual maps, like that you had to highlight and look at in a book, because we just now, we don't memorize phone numbers anymore. I mean, how many phone numbers do you even know by heart now? And so these marginal things, it's an art. It really is, and it's a mindset. So okay, so two things left. There was a shifting away from cycling for a second. There was a very serious health scare in your family recently with your wife. How has that shaped you, your family, your outlook on long term development and life in general?
Yeah, yeah. My wife had a spinal stroke, and that was a big shock to our family. We absolutely we're not expecting it. My wife is perfectly healthy. She has nothing wrong with her. She has. I mean, literally, like they have no idea where it came from or how it came, but it just kind of gives you a reality check in terms of make the most of every second. That's for sure. Because even the healthiest, even the people that prepare for everything, even if you have the greatest outlook on exercise and nutrition. I mean, my wife was a picture of health. She runs a wellness program. She practices what she preaches. She doesn't drink. She's eats all natural food. She exercises on a consistent basis. She has no blood values that are outside of any ranges. Yet things can still happen. So one of the things I think we all realize, anybody that has any engagement with Lori, realizes that mis- accidents happen, and they happen to great people. They happen to people that limit all of their opportunities for an accident. And I think one of the biggest takeaways is there's a few. One is make sure you live every day. Make sure you tell the people that you care about how you feel about them, and just try to enjoy things. Don't get too serious. Don't take anything. I mean, I overreact. I'm like one of those people that thinks about everything, worst case scenarios, and it's just life is too short. Just enjoy every single day and the people that you're with. Be in the moment, like I am with you right now. Like, don't start thinking about, oh my gosh, I got this big talk I'm giving to the coaches. Like, just take and enjoy and get the most out of every second of every day, because it could be your last. That's first. Second is when people showed up for my wife Lori, and just the amount of people that supported our family, myself, our kids, and Lori is just astounding. Like there's so many people out there. It gives me a lot of confidence in society that we do care about one another, and we do want to help whenever we can. And people always feel better about themselves when they're helping others. And it was obvious because the amount of people that showed up for us was insane. And when you show up for other people, boy, does it feel good too. Like it's so funny. Like I'm like, no, I'm not going to go do that thing because I want to take care of this, or I want to go hunting, or I want to. And every time you choose to go help somebody else out, you're always in this space of feeling good. It's a lot easier to appreciate life when you're in the service of others. So it taught us how to show up in a big way. It also taught me that um, there's an element of good fortune that I have personally. I have a wife that worked her butt off. I had connections to get her the best care. I have cousins and doctors that stayed by my side and made sure that we did everything right. Um, my training kind of kicked in where I just made sure that we optimized every component of her recovery at the highest level, just like my dad did for me, just like people did for me during my career. I just managed it really well. I mean, not really well, but I just managed it like I would anything else. And I think my wife's work ethic, the people that we had helping us, the team that we had, gave her what I think is the best chance we could possibly give her to be successful. And yeah, it really inspired me to see my wife go through what she went through, and we're really really thankful for where she's at right now. But I will tell you, there's still work to be done, and like you said, it's about showing up every single day, waking up, getting it done, grinding it out. There's no easy path in life. I think you appreciate where you're at in life when you don't have an easy path. I appreciate all the work that I've done and all the struggles I've had, and I think it all just makes this journey incredible. And I think Lori is super grateful. She's doing well. She continues to grow. We've never been closer. Our family's never been closer. Our friends have never been closer. This thing is really like the Chinese farmer. You just don't know what good things can come from difficult situations.
What would you like your legacy to be?
Hmm. I mean, legacy is one of those things that I don't even think about. I just want to make sure that the people in my life that I have influence on, or that I help out, or I interact with, have better lives because of me. That's it. Like my kids, my wife, my athletes, my coworkers. I just hope that I've given them something. Really, that's it. Like I want to make sure that they're happier, that they're healthier, that their lives are more meaningful, hopefully, because I was a part of it.
There was a recent podcast that I listened to, and they said it was quite comical that when you are in service of others, so a seemingly selfless act, it's maybe one of the most selfish things
Yeah,
you can do for yourself.
for sure.
And I
I don't
think
believe there are selfless acts. I think they're all they all make us feel better. So I guess, but if that's how I can feel better and make someone else feel better, I'm okay with that selfishness.
I couldn't agree more. I think our roles as coaches, as fathers, as fellow athletes is to be husbands, is to be in service and of service to others. And I think you have done an incredible job of doing that so far, and I am quite excited for the the next steps to come. And I am grateful for your time on the podcast today. If there's any last nugget that you want to leave, I have more questions, but we'll do that at another time, because I know that I want to respect time for today. But anything else you want to say and leave us with?
No, I mean, I think Yeah, I just make time for yourself, not because you're being selfish, but you're being actually less selfish by giving yourself an opportunity to be super healthy for others. I know I talked about that already, but I believe obviously relationships are ultimately the most important things in our lives, and you can have better ones if you're healthy.
Amen. Well, on that note, again, thank you so much for your time, for some great lessons learned, and we will we will do this again. Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Thank you.